which version of the Calgary Flames shows up.
Yeah, because we won game 1 last year, too.
Won game 1 last series, and then we played poorly in game 2, and then we came back for game 3.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remember, as a group of fans that are used to this team not going further than the first round, this is 7 games potentially against the same opponent. You prepare very differently than we do when it's Dallas one night, Colorado the next, Edmonton the next. And, Matt touched on it, a few people touched on it. There's a pacing thing that we have to look at for a long round like this as well. We can't come out guns blazing every night.
The emotional roller coaster of the playoffs. We felt it last night. Get up 1-0, 20 seconds into the game. Then the Stars tie it. Then the Stars gain a 2-goal lead. And then the Flames get closer. Then the Flames close in again. Then there's that goal doesn't count. Then they have a power play. The Stars then increase the lead on their power play. And then the Flames tie it. And then with 30 seconds to go, Jamie Oleksiak puts it away for the Dallas Stars. They win 5-4, continuing the long losing streak of about 16 years of the Flames not winning a game 2 of a Stanley Cup playoff series, which includes the qualifying round against the Winnipeg Jets. And we will dissect that. We will analyze that. And then we will look forward to tonight's game of game 3. So you're listening on Facebook Live, the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter as well, the Hockey Podcast, podcast_hockey. Follow me on Twitter, KEVOLE. And you can subscribe on iTunes, Google, Spotify, etc., wherever you get your podcasts. We are here. Sean is here representing feelings from Heidi as well. So are you feeling like a agent today, Sean?
We had an argument on what sweaters to hang up in the background, so that was quite interesting.
Oh, there we go. Okay, fair enough. And then we have Devin here as well. Devin, hello.
Hello. I always side with Heidi with these things, Sean. I don't know if you're going to learn, but one of the house is always white.
Sure. This is why I remain single. Matt's here as well. Hello, Matt.
Yeah, and I have to go with Devin there, word for word.
Sean is already 4 minutes into this podcast outnumbered. We will have.
I knew that coming in.
We'll get into a lot of different things here. We'll talk about. Well, there's lots to get into. We'll talk about how the Flames will adapt without Matthew Tkachuk. We will talk about goaltending. We will just talk about the whole game and what to look for. But I guess, looking back, I played a little bit of a portion coming in of what we expected about Game 2. But Matt was the one person on this podcast that felt that the win for Game 2 for the Flames was vital. And it didn't happen. But we also said that it really depended for us on how the Flames look. So I'm going to ask the question, they didn't win, but would you grade this as a passing grade? Did you see enough of something to give hope for the Flames going forward?
Well,
in a general sense.
Yeah, you have to look at it like the Flames basically played as poorly as possible in that game. And yet they still were 30 seconds away from getting it to overtime. I thought that the entire team was kind of out of sorts for pretty much like the first 45 minutes of the game, up until Mangiapane had that goal called off, which I still don't understand how that was called off. But up until that point, the Flames just did not seem to have any cohesion, but then had that late push and that should, like it was actually kind of surprising. Like, despite how poorly the Flames played, Dallas at no point looked like a good team. And I think that the Stars actually showed themselves to be rather beatable if you actually just show up and play even average hockey.
Devin, Sean?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's
from an outsider's perspective, it did look like the Flames kind of played down to the Dallas Stars level where the Stars are playing ever since getting into the bubble. And despite having yet again their whichever the top line is, we'll have that conversation again apparently. Both the top six lines did not play well last night, and they were still able to find a way. And sometimes that's what you need. They were very close to pushing it to overtime, and I think we're kind of unlucky actually to not push it to overtime. So I think in that aspect, it is a positive. You can take that as a positive out of that game for the Flames.
I'm still very concerned about. Yes, there were positives. They were able to come back when they weren't playing that well, and that's probably the best that the Stars have been throughout this entire post-COVID fallout. And they played decent. The Dallas Stars. I still think they have one more gear. A couple of those goals, both Heiskanen goals, were questionable on Talbot's part and on the Flames trying to support him. But I'm more concerned about the lack, once again, talking about that top line, or quote unquote the top line, the Monahan, Gaudreau, Lindholm line. I have not seen good enough from them. I do want to preface it by saying that Monahan had a good game. I was very impressed with him. He was being physical, able to. He was noticeable. Otherwise, it seems like he just goes off into the night quiet. And if beating my head against the wall saying this, if the top line is not going to be their top line, I do not see them being successful. And the Stars, I feel like, are not. They're not top echelon team that they're going to be playing. If we get past this round, we're going to be playing a great team. So those guys need to get going. And the Backlund, Mangiapane, Tkachuk line was not good either. So it's concerning, but I guess if we're close enough when we play this bad, then there's some positives going forward.
I guess here are my concerns. You get the early goal, and then Dallas is putting pressure on you, and they end up having a 2-goal lead. Sean has the ability to share the heat map from Natural Stat Trick, so you'll probably see this as I'm chatting here, but a 1-0 lead in the first minute of the first period should give you some jump, especially when it's a guy that has been one of your pillars of your early playoff success. You put out that same grind. They're calling it the grind line, the Bennett, Lucic, Dubé line. You established your game already, and you found a way to blow it up. We'll get into the Mangiapane non-goal in a moment, but you did get a 4-minute power play out of it. You got 2 shots. You come back from a 4-2 deficit to tie it, and I don't know what happened in the final 3 minutes there. That was an absolute tire fire. And I know it was his birthday. Happy birthday, Johnny Gaudreau. But I do believe that there is a rule that you have to still cover your player that is coming in off the point. Have I missed rules there? Is that still a rule that we are allowed to, there was just, to me, too many opportunities for the Flames to take that next step that they they showed that fold the tent again. But they showed, what was weird is they didn't show the fold the tent when things were tough. They showed the fold the tent when things were going on their way.
That's the thing that frustrates me with this team. Like, when the Flames scored right off the bat, I'm going, oh crap, that's not a good thing. Because this team seems to get the in their head that, like, if they have any early success, it's like, oh well, the other team's clearly bad because, like, we just started and we're already up 1-0, and then the effort just dropped right after that, and the Stars took over the game right up until the Mangiapane goal. Like, that was waved off. Like, the Flames were bad right through that point, and it's just frustrating with this team. It's almost like they tend to get overconfident in themselves, like, especially after game 1 they played so well. 20 seconds into the game, oh hey, we're already up 1-0, this is going to be easy, and then
Yeah, it's concerning. It's, once again, going back to the find away Flames of 2016, I believe it was, and I'm sick of seeing us not play a 60-minute game. If we play a 60-minute game, if the Flames do that, they're going to be successful a good majority of the time. But they do not do that, and it is hard. And I mean, you saw it on that last goal. Johnny, you're not producing. You need to be playing defense. You need to be looking around, especially with that much time left in the game. You have to make sure there's no one behind you, especially, like, and it dumbfounds me that, if you are a high offensive player and you're not producing, you got to be effective in different parts of your game. And if you're not, then you're absolutely useless to this team. So, Johnny, you need to take a look in the mirror and figure out why, first of all, you're not doing what you need to be doing. And second of all, if you're not doing that, what other things can you be doing to help the team? And right now, he is not doing that.
Okay, just to quickly, before I want to get to Cam Talbot here for a quick second, but I do have a question. What I saw in that play, unless someone saw something completely different that is far smarter than I am, Johnny looked and saw him. Like, Johnny saw the defenseman coming in. It seemed to me, I think my assumption was he assumed someone else was going to take him. But he did look. He looked straight at Alexiak, went back to look at the puck, and Alexiak was all of a sudden gone. Did someone see it differently?
No, that's exactly it. To me, Gaudreau has kind of, in my mind, has turned into what Thomas Vanek was for the Buffalo Sabres. And just somebody who's can put up points in the regular season and then just absolutely ghosts on the team when anything gets going.
Sean?
Oh, yeah. He does have to step up. It's now been 2-3 playoffs now in a row that he's just been not producing at all. It's not good enough. And then, like you said, I can bring up the heat maps of what happened. You can see that. You look at the Flames. They're not getting anything from in front of the slot. It's all perimeter from above the circles and at the point. And if you can't produce any sort of offense shot attempts from the slot, then you've drastically reduced the chance of scoring for your team.
Yeah, for those of you who can't see the maps, right around the net and the points are where Calgary's getting their shots, and then the Stars are all over the place, around the circles, in the slot, low, high slot, and it's not good enough.
And Matt, you've played goal, so I know that everyone is going to talk about the third goal that he allowed against Heiskanen, and that is a goal that he should have had. But from your perspective, you may Talbot made about 4 or 5 pretty big saves to keep that to a 2-1 game, and you're not getting any offense. How fair is it from a goaltender's perspective that, okay, you allowed a kind of a stinker, but you're getting pelted on at the same time here? Like, I'm curious
that
from goaltending perspective how you look at that.
Well, it's one of those things that, like, especially like when you're basically the only guy who's playing, because like that happened to me on a number of occasions, where you're getting virtually no help, and sometimes like it's the dumb shot that, like he was not expecting that shot to be coming, and he was screened, I do believe, by 2 of the Flames as well, and he was cheating off the post expecting a pass more so than that, and by the time that the puck's coming, he just didn't have any time to react. It was a bad goal, but at the same time, if you're not getting any help at all, like he bailed the team. Like after the first period, if you would have said the score was 5-1 for Dallas, that would have made sense. And like he did keep it close, and you need at that point, like you need the team to wake up, and that's why Ward used the timeout right after that, because it's like, guys, really, like what's going on here? Because like the goalie, he can't do everything himself. Like he's doing his best to keep the puck out, and you need the other 18 guys to actually do something. And for up until the 3-1 goal, like they were just doing absolutely nothing. Like they might as well not have even had a team out there. That's how bad defensively they were playing.
For me, Talbot needs to have that goal. But we've seen a lot of short-sighted goals sneaking through the goaltenders, whether they were we had with Eric Stahl and Jeff Petrie with a couple absolute snipes in the top corner, but there's also been a lot of squeakers short side getting through the body of goalies, and I'm wondering if that's just more a factor of the goalies not being in mid-season playoff form because of the pause, and they're not hitting their marks on their post-integration plans and schemes and skills. Because I remember talking with Kevin Woodley about this, listening to him talk about it. And that's kind of what he's been saying, is it's not necessarily a failure of the system that they're employing, but a failure of them to employ the system and the techniques properly. And I think that's probably just what happened there. But yeah, in terms of that game, you need Talbot to make that save despite your team not playing well. Unfortunately, that's just the unfortunate double-edged sword that is goaltending when your team's not playing well. You need to be on top of your game, or else you're just exacerbating the problem.
I thought Talbot played great last night. Other than that one goal, I thought that he stopped a bunch of grade A scoring chances. Look at that heat map again, and the Stars were all over the slot and high scoring chances. So I probably should have had that one. And you know what? I would cancel it out with the Forbert goal because that was another seeing eye shot too.
That's true. I didn't think Ben Bishop was outstanding last night. I thought he was okay. I thought he did enough to win, but I didn't think he was great.
I didn't think so either.
Honestly, I think if Hudobin started game 2, we're talking about a 4 or 5-1 game.
I thought Bishop looked shaky. There was lots of times where he was scrambling and almost looking the wrong way, falling down on himself, like nearly scored on himself with a kick save out to one of his defensemen that went off their leg. I thought he looked shaky, and if they play him again today, I think the Flames should be drooling at that fact, because I think he's ripe for the taking in terms of some holes and some parts of his game that they can exploit.
So if you're the Flames, I guess who starts tonight and who starts game 4?
Depends on who plays tonight, really, who starts game 4. But tonight is I believe they should go back to Talbot. I mean, if you want to get Riddick in, this is the perfect time to do it. A little bit of a shakeup, but I would have a hard time taking him out because of how well Talbot has played.
Yeah, same here.
I think they start Riddick. I think they this was the plan all along, to try and just not, because it's not a normal playoff where you have games a day apart. You've got this back to back, and you want to give Talbot a bit of a rest here so he can maybe reset a little bit, even though he has played well. I do think that the plan is to play Riddick tonight, and then back to Talbot for game 4.
I may go even further and suggest that if Riddick plays well tonight, I think they're going to go with Riddick tonight, and I think if Riddick plays well, we might see him for game 4 as well. I think that they are considering both, considering that this is a 4 game and 5 night kind of series. I was thinking about that this morning. I think that if Riddick does reasonably well, I think that there's a chance we see him back on Sunday as well.
Now, my question is, how long of a leash does Riddick have if he does not play well in the first or second?
I think as long as he's not like an absolute sieve and giving up bad goals left, right, and center, I think they'll go with him for at least 2 periods, just so they can give Talbot the rest that they want to get. They're looking to give him. And in terms of Kev, your take there, I think Riddick has to steal this game for him to get back in for game 4. This is Talbot's net at this point.
Yeah,
He's played well enough to keep it. He hasn't played poor enough for Riddick to come in and play like average or above average to take it away. Riddick has to steal this game if he wants game 4.
Yeah, that's fair. I just was thinking about the 4 and 5 and thinking that when Riddick goes well, he is in a bit of a rhythm. I think if you're pulling Riddick after 2 periods in this series, I think the series is over, honestly. And I think it's probable that Riddick's career in Calgary is over. If you're doing it, I think you need to at least have enough confidence that if you're playing Riddick, you have to have the belief that he's going to play the whole game. You've got to go back to Talbot then. You're just running with Talbot and hoping for the best.
I agree that it is probably Talbot's if Riddick does not play well, that this probably is his career ender in Calgary. But I do not say that the series is over. I mean, if you lose this one, you're only down by one game. That's it. So I don't know. I don't know if I completely agree with that statement.
Well, it's a confidence thing with your goaltender, though. Like, if you're not having the belief in your goaltender that you can win, it's tough to win.
But they can go back to Talbot there. I agree with Devin on that. It's not over. It's a huge blow, but it's not over. The Flames have home ice right now. If they lose tonight, then they hand it back to Dallas, but it's not that big of a deal because all it really is last change.
Fair. Matt, what do you think?
Well, honestly, I think Dallas is playing so poorly that even if they win tonight, the Flames can still come back. But I think if they do lose and play as badly as they did yesterday, then I think that we're going to be starting to look in a Colorado-esque fashion where the Flames are just starting to beat themselves more than what the other team's doing.
Before we get to the Flames defense, I do think, like, as much as Dallas didn't play well, there was I'm going to pat myself on the back here. I literally did it for those listening. I think that we forgot the factor. Actually, I know pat Devin on the back. Devin, you can pat yourself on the back for this as well. I think we forgot the factor that Corey Perry was going to be in this series. And again, showing up to be a flame killer. And I'm almost think that one of the key X factors in this series is going to be who's more effective, Corey Perry or Milan Lucic? And last night it was certainly Corey Perry. He was he was all over that Flames net, disturbing everywhere, doing his Corey Perry-like thing, got a goal. He's just been a nightmare for the Flames. He's a nightmare.
Yeah, I just pulled up his stats for those who are watching on Facebook Live. He's got in this is just regular season, but in 58 games versus the Flames in the regular season, he's got 17 goals and 28 assists and is a +9, and which is really good, and as well as the 67 penalty minutes. So not only is he producing, but he's creating a lot of havoc with and getting right in there like he should be with the player he is.
Yeah, he's been a Flames killer for a while, and he's on the third line too. And for his goal, that's a vintage Perry, being in front of the net, jamming away at the puck, and I'd say it's more so a detriment on Forbort, leaving him wide open on the back door and letting him jam away 3 times at that puck. Once again, our defensive zone structure seems to fall apart every once in a while, and when it does, it causes a good scoring chance, if not a goal. So nothing against Perry. He's been killing the Flames for years, and those stats really prove it. But if we're defensively sound, then Perry has he can't post up in front of the net like that. He can't be as effective as he has been.
Yeah. Oh, we lost. Oh, there's Matt. I was like, where's Matt? Where did Matt go? And speaking of defense, I guess that's where I want to go next. Do we want to start with Giordano? Yeah, let's go there. I mean, we've already went there with a hot take of Matt's hot take previously that he wouldn't protect him in expansion. I guess to me, with Giordano, what Rhett Warner said this morning on 960 is either you play him more and he gets into a rhythm and he's not thinking, or you play him less. Or what is it? What is Giordano? What are you seeing from Giordano? What is the issue? I'm not necessarily buying it's fully age, but he's not himself.
Well, he's 37 and he hasn't played hockey in 4 months, and I think that like what Rhett Warner was saying, he needs a while to get going again and get his legs under him. And as he said, like, if you play him more, then that will help him to get his legs under him. Or if you just don't trust that the legs will actually come back, then it makes more sense to have Anderson take over as the top pair. Yeah,
it depends on his health. If he's completely healthy and you want to try for a game of playing him, then he doesn't have how much time to think or overthink. Then overplay him. But I don't know. I just see a deteriorating player that didn't have who knows what he was doing during those 4 months off, but you can only assume that he was working out every day, making sure he's going to be in top shape. And if that's the case, that it's sometimes it's just a steep drop off for any player after a certain age. So I personally would take back his minutes. I would put Anderson on that top line and actually take him off the second power play unit and put Anderson there too. Maybe taking that step back really lights a fire under his ass and gets him going. But as of right now, I'm not confident in having him play 22 minutes.
Yeah, both number 5 and number 13 have looked quite awful throughout this playoffs.
In terms of Gio, I would take him off. I would try and cut down his 5-on-5 minutes a little bit. I wouldn't take him off the second power play unit. He's still your second best option on the point for that, behind Gustafsson, who's really taken that first unit over, and that's a huge step. I think that this is one of the big questions I've had for the Flames going back even after the Colorado series last year was how are they building up the younger players to take over for Joe when he's done, and when will that happen? And we don't know because he is at the older side of things, and you never know how long someone like him. He's a physical stud. Like let's not take that away from him. He is a workhorse who works at being the best in the best shape that he possibly can, and is one of the leaders when you come into training camp. He was like the Sedins in that aspect, where he's the standard. If you don't meet that standard, you're out. And but I just wonder I think based on looking at him, I wouldn't be surprised if there's one or two small little naggy injuries that are hampering him as well. So knock him back a little bit on the 5-on-5, but keep him on the power play in my opinion.
Would you make any changes to defense? Would you make a change?
You keep the same 6 in my opinion. It's not the issues aren't on the blue line. It's the forwards that aren't creating anything.
I mean, who do you take out? Forbort for Stone? Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me unless, especially with how big Dallas is. You put in Shillington. I don't think so. So no, I keep the 6.
Matt?
Yeah. What is currently going on with Giordano? It reminds me a little bit of when Brian Campbell was with Chicago, and like initially he was on their top pairing, and then like as the younger guys at the time with Keith and Seabrook, as they were getting better, they ended up taking over that first pairing spot, and he basically became the wily veteran on the second pair. And I think that Giordano, I think as we go forward both in this series and into next year, that you're going to see, I think, more reliance on Hannafin and Anderson being the primary guys, and Giordano being more of the lower pairing leadership guy. And I think that with the current makeup of the 6, that none of the other guys would make an impact. Like I could see like Ronaldo starting in case of like one of the forwards, but like there's no guy that has like that kind of other dimension that's not currently playing.
The only person I could possibly see, and it's not going to happen, but the only person I sat and thought about that I would consider, and I wouldn't do it, I'll precurse that, but if Valimaki was ready, I would consider that. But again, there's the expansion issue. There's so many other issues with that, but that's the only person. Like, I don't see Shillington or Stone making a huge difference in this series at all. I could see a Valimaki with his potential possibly making a difference, but I don't think it's worth the risk at this point in time.
Yeah, putting in Valimaki would be, without the expansion, that would be a very smart move in my mind. But I think the expansion kind of overrules it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. In terms of forwards, I'm going to assume, and I assume he makes an ass out of you and me. By the way, you're watching on Facebook Live, listening on audio. Hopefully you're listening as well. Thank you for that. We've got Sean and Devin and Matt here. But we'll get to the forward part here. I'm 95% certain, again, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, but based on what I saw from Matthew Tkachuk last night, I don't think he's playing tonight. If he is, I'm stunned, and I would question all that are involved if Matthew Tkachuk is playing, because he looked concussed to me. We talked about it in the chat, and I just wouldn't make sense for him to play tonight. I could probably see him in Game 4. Am I off base? Am I off base on that assumption? First of all,
no, I'm kind of seeing that as well.
Yeah,
you can't. There's no way he's playing tonight. If he was any sort of headed, like the way he was wobbling coming off the ice and everything points towards some sort of concussion, head injury, and you're not playing. There's no way that they can play him in a back-to-back, let alone play him maybe even 2 days, 3 days later. He's not playing tonight, and I would say he's very questionable for Game 4 as well.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised to see him back this series at all, to be honest. Hopefully, but with Sean and I know both of us have had concussions, and if anybody has not, they are debilitating. And you don't want to risk his entire career off of just a couple games here or there. So I would be very surprised if he came back. Now, with saying that, I feel like Kevin's question is, who do you put in? So I'm going to jump in.
I already had a proposal, but I want to hear yours.
So what I would do personally, I would have Johnny Monty together, bring up Sam Bennett. He was up there a couple times during last game, Game 2. Then your second line, or your backline line. Let's call him by the friggin' center iceman. The backline line, I would have Mangiapane, and I would have Lindholm on that line as well on the wing. As a third line, I would have which is actually very familiar to that to this unit, is the Ryan Lucic Dubé. They played together before, and then you have you have Reeder. Get Jankowski out of there. He had a decent game, but I'm tired of seeing his friggin' face. And I would put in either Alan Quine, or I would put Alan Quine in, and I would also put in Austin Zarnik. I've not seen Ronaldo play the way that he can play, and if he can play the way that he can play, which is gritty, in your face, in every scrum, hitting everybody, bring energy, put him in. But I've not seen that from him since the beginning of the year. So I'd be very hesitant bringing him. So I would want to see Zarnik on there.
I see them putting Ronaldo in. I honestly do. Whether or not they take out Jankowski and put someone else in, I think they should. I think it's time to mix something up and try and find a way to create some more, because even though the Reeder played well, I think Reeder played very well last night. That third line, which now is going to get broken up, played well again. But I do think it's time to find a way to inject some more energy and some fresh legs into the lineup. And if that means Austin Zarnik or Alan Quine or even Buddy Robinson, I think that's it. Now's the time.
I'd actually go a little slightly different with you guys' makeup. I'd actually throw Andrew Mangiapane up on the first line for a bit, and slide Dubé up to play with both Lindholm and Backlund instead. Just to give Dubé a little bit more of a reward, and have Sam Bennett center the third line. And I'd insert Austin Zarnik in on his right side, and then keep the fourth line the same.
For me, I could see the argument of putting Mangiapane with Monahan and Gaudreau. I would insert Zarnik. My argument for Zarnik is I think he can play in the top 6, and you're not breaking up the grind line, and you can do a combination of Backlund, Lindholm, and Zarnik. Again, I know that you don't like Backlund. Backlund doesn't like the wing, but that might be an interesting line. Put Lindholm at center, and then you're keeping your Bennett, Dubé, Lucic line, which has been the best line. And I understand what they're trying to do and trying to get energy everywhere else, but you also want to keep that best line, or you got to find a way to get Derek Ryan more on the ice. And I would go. I think they are going to go Ronaldo. If I was going to replace Jankowski, I would go with Alan Quine. I do think you look at the Stars giveaways. They gave the puck away a lot last. I think it was. I'll have to pull that up. It was close to 9 or 10 giveaways. I think that this is a perfect series for an Alan Quine and an Austin Zarnik to be in. I just I don't see in this series what specifically Ronaldo's role would specifically be when Lucic, Bennett, and Dubé are already doing it. And I think you need to find a way to use Derek Ryan a little bit more. And if you're playing Ronaldo, you're playing Ryan. You're probably playing Ryan less. That's my hunch.
Yeah, it depends on, I guess, how you construct your lineup. I agree. If Austin Zarnik's going to be put in, he should be put in the top 6. Top 9. And then, you know what, Sean, I totally forgot about Buddy Robinson, and I feel like having him on the fourth line. You're the
Buddy Robinson guy.
I know. I'm disappointed in myself, too. I love the way he plays. He's physical. He still has skill. And imagine, I don't know, I feel like him, Ryan, and Reeder on that fourth line, I thought they would, if that's the way they go, that'd be a hell of a line.
I'll agree with Matt, and I like the idea of pushing Mangiapane up with Gaudreau and Monahan. He'd be the type of player who could drag Johnny into the fight, and that's what they need. They need someone to do that. Like it's time for someone to drag him into the fight, kicking and screaming, crying, whatever it takes. Get him in. They need to get him going and get him in the scrums, get him fired up, and get him actually doing something 5-on-5. So I think having Mangiapane would be on that line. I think would be a very smart move. And then I wouldn't mind seeing at that point you can play around with your next 2 lines and figure out what works. I think I wouldn't again, same thing. You could have Lucic and Dubé dragging Lindholm into the fight at that point, and then I don't know. You've already broken up. You've already taken away Backlund's two wingers away though. So I'm not sure what you do with him at that point.
You could put Ryan on the wing with Backlund. That's a possibility. I mean, I'm not saying that Derek Ryan's a top 6 forward, but that's an option. I mean, you could put. I mean, I could see Austin Zarnik. I mean, I agree with the Mangiapane idea, but I could also see Austin Zarnik dragging Johnny Gaudreau into the fight too. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. But I there is options there. It's just, you know, how you work that.
If Zarnik's going to be put in the mix, I think he should be on the third line. Putting him on the second line as your shutdown, quote-unquote, shutdown role, I do not see him as a defensive player. So that's the only thing. If you're going to put Zarnik in, put him on the third line, or I don't see him playing top-line minutes.
Do you think you could, if you're going to continue to have Backlund as your centering your shutdown line and you move Mangiapane off that line, do you slide Bennett to the wing?
Yeah. Bennett's his defensive game has gotten better. I just don't think of it. I don't think of him as a shutdown player.
Yeah.
But
so who's on the other wing on that line then? Is it because I still think that you need to. I like the idea of Lindholm centering Lucic and Dubé as a line that you can throw out there, cause havoc, and then they can Dubé and Lucic can grind it out and feed Lindholm the puck, and he just tell him to freaking shoot it. I think that would work really well.
Totally, and you know, if you're gonna slide somebody in on that back line, slide in Reeder. He's played well, and he's a good defensive player. So I feel like that'd be the right move.
They had Reeder playing with Monahan and Gaudreau for a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, I believe 2 shifts.
A couple shifts, yeah.
It's hard when the Flames have a bunch of different options for the extra players that it kind of you can change everything up really and just keep until you get that right chemistry going. You can just keep kind of shifting all the lines around until it works.
Yeah. And you know, as much as you want to kind of switch things up, it would be hard to get away from that third line of Lucic, Benn, and Dubé. They played really well. So, it's a blessing that we can have this discussion and be confident within a couple choices. But at the same time, you don't want to be fixing something that doesn't need to be fixed with, line combinations.
But you do need to fix something without Tkachuk.
For sure.
For sure. That is concerned. And my other struggle.
Sorry, go for it.
What I was going to say is my other struggle is the frustrating thing is generally it's been the bottom 6 that have been better than the top 6, and then when we always talk about making changes, it is from the bottom 6 perspective. We're looking at taking out a Jankowski for somebody, and I'm not like Gaudreau has been bad. You're not taking him out. I'll grant you that. You just can't do that at any point, but. There has to be a reward for the way that they're playing. But I'm not saying that Jankowski has been outstanding. Don't get me wrong, but it's also tough to remove from the bottom 6. But I do think that there's room for an Alan Klein in this series, or even a Buddy Robinson.
Looking at the lineup even more now, I think it is. They do need to. Buddy Robinson, as big and physical as he can be, is not the right choice. Ronaldo, despite I think that's what they're going to do, is not the right choice. I think they need to go with someone who can slide into the top 6, top 9, and be able to create havoc and create offense. Zarnik or Quine needs to be in tonight, in my opinion.
Yeah, Jankowski, he's you saw him kind of jousting with Radulov there, and you know what, if that's the thing, though, is that he doesn't have the thing about Jankowski that makes my blood boil is the fact that he has size and he's able to potentially push some people around. And if you're going to take off one of the top 6 players of the Stars, you start jousting with them. You don't think about playing hockey. That's not how you play playoff hockey. You gotta if he's engaging you friggin' engage back. You have to. If you don't, then you're absolutely useless. Like he had a chance to take one of the best players off, and he didn't. And that kind of just shows the determination and how he thinks about the game. And it's not good enough to be on that 4th line.
Well, one of the problems that I think the Flames have is they have too many nice guys on the team. And I've spoken with Jankowski before. He's an absolutely nice person. And he doesn't have that, Matthew Tkachuk, I'm a dick in him. And he just is not that person. And you can't teach that. And in a lot of ways, Sean Monahan is very much that same reserved type of person. And there is no second gear there in terms of playoff intensity. And I think that if the Flames are wanting that, they have to do personnel changes rather than trying to get something that's just not in those players.
Yeah, that's fair. I get it, but it's
I mean, you also had Curtis Lazar on this team that was the nicest guy, and he was on this team for way too long. before, he got sent down because he's a nice guy. It's not about being a nice guy. It's about playing hockey and playing hockey the right way, especially at this time of year. So hopefully they address that in the off season, whether or not it's after lifting the Stanley Cup or being outed this round or next round. So I agree with you, Matt.
Yeah. Well, and I think that foundationally, like, as the Flames were going through this whole rebuild, it was like, give me as much talent as possible. The Flames have kind of gotten to the point where, okay, now we have talent. Let's figure out how to actually make all the pieces work. And I think if the Flames don't go very far, I think that they're going to have to make some of those changes just to swap talent for talent.
Well, back to the teeth part, I do think, again, back to the defense too, just quickly before we wrap up. I still think we need more from Rasmus Andersson. I know you guys want to put him on the top line and all of that. I think he's been fine, but he needs to be louder. He needs to have more of an impact. He's got a hell of a shot. He can be a pest. He can be all of those things. He can be a not nice guy. And I don't think we've seen enough of that in this series from him. We need some bite from Rasmus Andersson.
With Tkachuk being out, hopefully he can step up to the challenge and start poking the bears of the Stars. And if he can do that, he'll be a difference maker. But he's still young, and he's still learning about the playoff game. So I feel like hopefully Lucic gets in his ear, or Ronaldo, or somebody can kind of light a fire under his ass and get him going. Because I agree, Kev, he's played decent, he's played well, but there's still more than he can give for sure.
He needs to step up. We saw last night Esa Lindell start stepping up and being an absolute dick towards some of the Flames, and that's what Rasmus Andersson needs to do. He's got 2 hits. He had 2 hits last night, and I want to see him hit 4 or 5 tonight. If the Flames are going to win, I think that he needs to be a very physical force.
Yeah. And my other just very quick concern, back to the backline situation, I'm concerned about that matchup because I personally thought that Radulov-Ben Sagan line, I thought outplayed the backline line. And I was concerned about that shutdown aspect. I'm not saying that the Stars were outstanding or anything, but that certainly was a matchup they won.
Yeah, I think because Tkachuk actually before he got but he got potentially concussed. He went off twice. Once for a spear of the nuts from Jamie Benn. Thank you, Jamie Benn. And the other one
for creating that visual for me, by the way.
Yeah, right. And then the other time, it must have been something else. I don't know, but. Tkachuk, he wasn't there, and I feel like if Tkachuk's going, then that entire line is going because Mangiapane, he's a Tkachuk light, if you will. He can get in people's girls and piss them right off, but I feel like without Tkachuk, that line isn't as effective, obviously, because Tkachuk is a great player. But I think that was one of the reasons why they didn't really show up.
Anything else that we want to talk about with this game? I guess we didn't talk about the non-goal. I guess if we want to.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. So.
Well, our ref Tyler Noble was surprised that got called back as well. I was pretty certain it was going to count until I saw that last angle from the blue line, where you could actually see. What happened? Like a full view of kind of what the tangle, the mess that Mangiapane and whoever was defending him. I think it was Heiskanen were in, and it just looked. I think it should count. honestly. I think that should have counted, but I can see why they decided that it was a kicking in motion, even though I think it was just because he was falling down.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, I'm not as upset that they called it back. Like, if you're gonna call it back, then where's the penalty for hauling the guy down?
Yep.
And that should have been a 2-minute 5-on-3 with the other penalty after that. And that's the thing that confused me. Like, if you're not calling the one, then you should call the other type of thing. And
yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I can't. It's been hard to. I understand why they called it, but why they called it off. But there should have been more to it. For all you know, Mangiapane was just trying to redirect it. No kicking motion, potentially just redirect it. But then he got hauled down, and his leg came up in a kicking motion because it got hauled down. That should have been either a goal or a penalty, and the refs they messed up on that. And it luckily was not the game changer, but it definitely swayed potentially good momentum for the Flames, or it could have been a backbreaker for us. So those are the type of calls that need to be called correctly, and that one was not.
I guess from a black and white perspective, it was a kicking motion. I for sure. I guess the question ultimately comes up: was it the kicking? Was it because Heiskin tackled him or not? That's the ref made that decision. The power play after that was terrible, though.
Yeah.
Terrible. That was the bigger issue for me. I do agree that that at least you probably should have at least considered another penalty there. But my big thing with that is I think this is I said this on Twitter, and I think that Sportsnet needs to bring, at least for the playoffs, if they can't bring one in for the regular season, or they just let Kevin Bieksa do it because he seems to be able to do everything else. They need to bring in a referee as part of the analytical crew. Like, just explain to us as a fan who may not be as smart, who doesn't understand the reffing way, what are the refs, what is the video review looking at? Why are they going to call it this way?
Wasn't that supposed to be what Ron McLean is?
Oh, Ron.
Well, Ron McLean is just I think Ron McLean is just making up his own stories now. It's like, oh yeah, Kevin, you're right. Let's talk about the history of Trident. And you look back at that book that I read a couple of months ago. It was really cool. And very nice to see you. We'll be back in a moment.
Yeah, I'm not shitting on Ron McLean at all, but he was a ref, and I feel like he can bring that. He, instead of just being a host, he can actually bring some sort of something a bit different than just asking questions. He was doing that with Don Cherry, right? He was kind of the mediator and saying, I remember him vividly saying multiple times that, well, the ref was, thinking this way. And Don Cherry was like, yeah, nothing's wrong here. Doing Don Cherry.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think that Don Cherry, I think we will never know how much that situation affected Ron McLean. And I will not be surprised if he's at least only on for hometown hockey next year, whenever next year starts.
Well, he was supposed to retire after George Strombolopoulos kind of came on for a year and a half, 2 years. And that obviously didn't work out. But I do agree. I think that we need to there needs to be some sort of referee on there. And that ref probably will get shit on a lot. And has got to have a thick skin. But I mean, if you're gonna be a referee in the NHL, you already have to have a thick skin. So get somebody on there to kind of give the other side of it for sure.
Yeah, I wonder what Kerry Fraser's doing, because I think he'd be perfect for that role.
Well, he was on TSN for years.
Yeah.
Like he actually had that role on TSN for a few years, and I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed him writing. He would write columns explaining a lot of things, and I found it absolutely fascinating, and I would love to see that again, whether it's Kerry Fraser or you get someone like someone else. Just get someone in there that can actually do that and because the NFL has that with the one guy that they go to when they're doing that, the replays, and they're doing the replays and reviewing everything. I would love to see that in the NHL. We talked like there's so much complaining about all these different camera angles, that super high one and everything. But what they really, for me, hockey is too fluid of a game to have like all these different camera angles that you use during play.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have bring these camera angles, make sure that they're cost effective, and then use them for replays, reviews, and then have someone who can actually use them to talk about what's going on, and then it'd be much better. So yeah, I think they do need to bring someone in at least to help with reviews, and then talking about calls and talk why the ref's thinking this way and that. I think as long as you talk, this is what the ref was thinking, and don't insinuate what the player was doing, then you're gonna be fine. Because that, like, going back to Ron McLean, every time I think about Ron McLean talking about reffing, I think about him basically just shitting on Alex Burrows in the Stephane Auger incident, and him trying to explain it but doing not a good job of it, and basically passing the blame from Auger to Burrows about what happened, and it just was not good. And I think he was a little gun shy after blowback from that as well.
Coming from a Canucks fan, yes.
Well, to be fair, though, I think Ron McLean has received a lot of blowback for a lot of different things.
Yeah, well, like I remember back earlier in the season when there was that weird offside goal that I think it was Carolina scored on the Flames, where like everybody was complaining that it was like clearly offside by the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And then, like, during the intermission, they had somebody, like, explain and break down, like, what the heck was the actual rule and, like, how it had changed, allowing that weird tag-up thing. And so that way it wasn't actually offside and all that kind of stuff. But, like, everybody at the time was like, what the hell? Like, it was clearly offside, but then with the explanation, it's like, oh, okay, that's fine then.
I mean, they even, like, just a couple of other series, just like quickly here, like the Carolina-Boston game 1. How on earth did it explain to me how that goal counts? Someone's going to have to explain how a Victor Hedman football tackle is not a penalty shot. Like,
yeah.
Well, I can explain that one, Kevin. It's overtime.
Oh, right. Different rules.
Yeah, it's different rules for different times of the game. That's really what it is. Whether they mean to do that or not, it's that one was just literally, it's overtime. They have this stupid thing stuck in their head, like, I do not want to affect the game in a negative way by calling a penalty, even though you just call the penalties by the standard that you set throughout the game, and then you're actually doing a better job.
Yeah. It's like Xbox. You adjust the penalties, or you adjust things as you just go to your settings and you adjust it. That's what they do at the NHL.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I think we've covered everything. Did we miss anything? No.
No. The one thing I do want to say, though, is I feel weird plugging them, but Spin Chicklets podcast interviewed Carey Fraser, and it is a fantastic interview. So if you've not heard it, go listen to it. It's damn phenomenal, really well done. So it kind of gives you a view into how reffing was back in the day, and how good of a friggin' human being that man is. God. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just thought I'd plug that.
I forgot also, let's wish good thoughts towards Claude Julien, who's out for the series, a heart situation. So that's going to be tough on the Canadians, but all the best to them. I forgot about that as well.
Yeah, and hopefully, through this kind of tragic incident with Claude Julien, that Kirk Muller can lead these Canadians to a couple wins.
They were goalpost away from making that overtime.
Yeah.
Nick Suzuki is one hell of a player.
Yes.
Sorry, Devin. My last hot take. The Montreal Canadiens are going to be better than the Toronto Maple Leafs very soon.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Honestly, I think Toronto, they suffer from a lot of the same problems that the Edmonton Oilers do, in that they just don't have any cohesive plan on preventing shots or goals, and that anytime they face a team that can actually play defense, like, they're just screwed right off the hop.
Yep.
Just keep on digging that deep. Get that knife deeper, guys. Twist it a little bit. Let's get some alcohol on there.
I put in the messages, actually, to you. Did you see that?
I did not, no. I'm ignoring all this bullshit.
I feel like this should be screenshotted as we close off. Actually.
Oh, God.
While we're doing that, we will be back tomorrow. We will be recapping Game 2, Canucks Blues. Game 3, Flames Stars. We'll have the power play together. Everybody will be there. So come join us for that. We'll be back live on Facebook. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardedConnect03 on Twitter.
I'm GordHouse09 on Twitter.
Matt Dubourg on Twitter, as well as Fireside Podcast.
And Heidi is Heidi Mazeballs. Chris is Schneids, SCHNEIDZ. Tyler T. Noble, podcast_hockey. Dan and Fire as well. He was going to come on, but he has work. Anyway, and then
damn Sate.
Who works nowadays?
Yeah. Honestly. I will just read this as we close off. Stay home so we can make COVID disappear like the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.
I thought we were friends, man.
That was Heidi.
Oh.
That was Heidi who posted that one.
That was Heidi?
Yeah.
Heidi, if you can hear me, I thought we were friends. I had your back at the beginning of the podcast, but then you come and shit on me